Hi, this is Jacqui Cain. I want to thank everyone at the online teaching conference for allowing me to present and explain what my project is, and thank everyone for coming. My presentation is on the Indigenous Peoples Reader, which is a project that I developed with college open textbooks, and it's an online reader that's going to be used in developmental education curriculum. Before I get started and explain this project, I want to give you some background information about how I got involved with college open textbooks and creating this reader for the Indigenous tribes here in California. It all started way back in 2009 when I got involved with the Open Course Library Project for the state of Washington. This is the first opportunity that I had to get involved in the open education resources movement. And for that, we were asked to take the most popular courses being offered at the community college level and put them online, but in completely it's completely open education resources that anybody could have, and that this curriculum would be able to be used by anybody, not only in the state of Washington, but essentially anybody who wanted these courses in the United States or even beyond the United States. And so I was very excited about that, and I created a completely online course that was from the ground up. That was a developmental level English class. It's a pre-composition class. And that was just a wonderful experience to be part of that movement, and I got very excited by the possibilities of open education resources. And later, I was tapped by the Kaleidoscope grant, the Project Kaleidoscope. And what Project Kaleidoscope was doing is they wanted to get partner colleges to use existing open education resources and materials and to actually sort of test them to see how they work and to collect data on it, to see if the curriculum was effective, and to actually try to quantify what the savings for the students were going to be, and which was a really exciting thing. So instead of developing new materials, the idea was that we were going to take existing materials and we were just going to test them at different colleges around the nation. And we were all going to gather this data on cost savingness and how the curriculum worked. And then we were going to give these findings back. And this is a partnering with the federal government. And I was part of the developmental reading team. I worked with members at Chabot College who developed materials for pre-freshman reading, like a pre-composition course. And I worked with Howard at Mercy College in New York, who used the materials to create a freshman seminar. And I am at College of the Redwoods in Eureka, California, and I wanted to take the materials that I had developed already for the Open Course Library Project, along with other materials that I could find, open education resources, and I was going to use them and for basic skills, to create a basic skills reader for a low-level reading class at College of the Redwoods. So that was the team. Just for those of you who are interested in finding out what else Project Kaleidoscope did, I was involved in the developmental reading end, but they also did the same thing with math, writing, English composition, biology, psychology, business management, and geography. And we are at the end of the first year of this, and so the data is being collected, and those projects, hopefully we're going to be seeing some published work coming out of that about the effectiveness of this and how the project went overall. So that was a very exciting project that I was working on last year that's actually coming to a close. I actually gave my last final right before I came here to record this. So it's officially over. I just have to get the data collected now, and that project is done. Give you some background information about the course, because it's the same course level as what I've decided to do for the Indigenous Peoples Reader Project. And that was, it's called Reading 360, which is a basic academic literacy. These are very low-level students. These are students that test below an 8th grade reading level. Limited small class size. We meet face-to-face in a computer lab for 8 hours and 40 minutes a week, which is very intensive. And what we were doing with Project Kaleidoscope is these had to be online resources. But for this class, we met in a computer lab, so we decided that we were going to do the curriculum as a hybrid. So the reading curriculum, which is the curriculum I developed for part of Project Kaleidoscope, that was online, and it was in Sakai, and it was available in the lab for the students to read and do the work in the computers. And then the writing portion of the class we did face-to-face. So it was a hybrid. It was a hybrid model for this. So what I did for the reader was very exciting. I used a product called SoftChalk, and the reason I chose SoftChalk is because it's one of the few tools that allow me to develop online resources that is completely ADA compliant, which was very exciting. It works with screen readers. It allows you to do alt text, which can be picked up by screen readers very easily. I have an image here you can see that gives you an idea of a rollover, so the students can take a look at it. There's a story they were reading where the gasogene is mentioned. I had a feeling the students wouldn't know when one was. And it allows you to embed images, film, and audio files, and then allows you to put self-tests in for hints, allows you to do rollovers, and again, everything is completely ADA compliant. And I know for a lot of colleges, not just the college I work for, that's always sort of been one of the bigger issues is you want to do this, you want to put the material online. How can you do it and get it, make it ADA compliant so you're keeping, your material legal for your students and for your college, and still make it interactive and still make it engaging and fun without just using text files all the time. So I decided I was going to use this thing called SoftChalk, and I'm explaining it to you now so when you see the images later, you'll have a sense of what the whole thing kind of looks like and why. Okay, so the original reader that I developed for Project Kaleidoscope was sort of built off the reader I did for the Open Course Library project, which is I decided I was going to use detective fiction to develop my reader because it's very effective with low-level learners. Detective fiction really makes the students highly motivated to keep reading because they get really interested in the story and they want to know what's going to happen next, and they try to anticipate where it's going to go. And it also is very a natural catalyst for students to learn critical reading skills because not only do they have the regular vocabulary and reading comprehension, it models how to draw conclusions and how to do inferential thinking and how to think about remembering details because that's what the detectives are doing in the story. And so they actually kind of model critical thinking in a way that's very engaging, and the students really respond to it. I also, the works that I chose in particular, I made sure that there was a multicultural focus, that there was a way of talking about cultural and social contexts such as gender issues, and different people from different around the world were all represented in the story. So it wasn't just, it wasn't just people from America or people from countries where they primarily speak English. There were a lot of immigrants involved, and so you got to see the mixture of the cultures in the story. So that was really fun. And so what I did was, and we just had a good time with this as well, is we all read The Hound of the Baskervilles together. And for many of the students, this was their very first time reading a novel. And so just so you can see what it looks like, this is actually the splash page for the reader that I used in the class. This is an online tool. If you look at the left-hand navigation, you can see each one of those chapters. Those are actually links. So if the student clicks on, they open up the reader, it always takes them to the front where they get to see the picture of the book. And then they can click on whatever chapter they happen to be on that we're reading that week. Okay? And so this is what they would get when they came online. And you can see how the images are embedded really nicely. But what happened from that was College Open textbooks had small grants available, and what they wanted people to do is they wanted to take existing materials that were open education resources, but they wanted them to give small amounts of money, it was like less than $2,000, in order to adapt it and repurpose it for a specific audience or to reach out to a specific community. So they weren't asking anybody to like design a whole new course, or even design whole new tools, as much as take what you already have, but sort of repurpose it, build on what you have and make it better. And I was very excited about that because I have lots of material that I develop, but also because I see so many ways of being able to expand the materials that we do have. And one of the satellite campuses we have at College of the Redwoods, where I teach, is out at the Hoopa Reservation. And they're the largest reservation in California. We have a satellite campus out there where they teach this course. And I was actually speaking with the dean one time, and she was telling me that the students were very frustrated with the curriculum that they had for the courses. And one of the reasons that they were frustrated with it is because they felt like it wasn't really relevant to their experience, and a lot of it didn't make sense because they lacked a lot of the cultural and context clues that would make the reading kind of make sense to them. These were students that, for the most part, grew up and were still living on the reservation, and they have very unique personal stories. And they would come to these textbooks where they're trying to be taught, basic reading and writing skills, and they were running into problems where the paragraphs and the material was so confusing that they were actually having a hard time getting through the material, and they were seeing a lot of attrition. Those students were dropping out. For example, there was a short essay they were asked to read that talked about how subways work, and nobody in the class knew what a subway was. They kind of maybe had heard of them. They certainly hadn't seen them. There aren't any subways that they could use anywhere near here. And they all got so confused by how this was supposed to work and what these look like that they never got to what they were supposed to take away from the lesson that day. And this is a roadblock that would seem to be coming up a lot with the books that they were using in the class. And I was very interested in this, and I was talking to the dean, and I said, what could we do to make the curriculum more relevant to them, make it more interesting to them, to keep them motivated, to want to have them keep coming back and read every week, to make them excited about the reading, and not turned off by it, and and also to allow them to just stay focused on the lessons and not get so distracted by things that didn't make sense in the reading. So I had that conversation, and then I got the call from College Open Textbooks, and I had this brilliant flash. I said, what if I took the curriculum that I already have developed for Reading 360 using The Hound of the Baskervilles, and I took that, and I tried to make a reader that would work for this particular population, that would work for Native Americans, that were going to Native colleges. What would that look like? So I submitted a proposal, and I was accepted. I was very pleased with that. And you can see the picture here. This is actually the campus on the Hoopa Reservation here. And so I got started. And what I decided to do was create an Indigenous Peoples reader. And so instead of 15 weeks, 15 chapters of The Hound of the Baskervilles, for 15 weeks, every week, they're going to get a reading that is based on the oral narrative traditions of various Indigenous peoples from around the world. So there's a focus on North American tribes and groups, but also about 1/3 of it is North American, but the other 2/3 are from around the world, because while I wanted to give them something that was personal, that they could relate to in their own experiences, I also wanted to make sure that the message that came out is that they're part of a larger community. It's a global community of Indigenous peoples, and that even if they lived, for 15 years on the Hoopa Reservation, that they had connections to other cultures and other communities around the world. I thought that was very important. So each week they get to explore the traditions and the folk. I say folk stories, but these aren't folk stories. These are part of the heritage and the oral tradition of these different cultures. This is the image I have up here. This is actually based on Hawaiian Islands, and it's a story about how they learn the hula, and where everyone goes to school and learns about not just the dance, but that the hula is a tradition of making the ceremonial robes that they wear and the garments that they wear. There's a lot of prayer and ritual that goes into it, and then finally there's the dance. And what's really exciting about this project is I got to really make it come alive for them. So at the end of the story, and I have a screen capture for this so you can see it, there's actually a video that I found, and it's of a hula school. and where you can actually see that the women who live on the islands today are actually going to school, and the video shows them going through the whole process, learning how to do the singing, the dancing, and praying the traditional hula, which is exactly what the story is that they just read. And so they can see that this is a living culture. I thought that was very important to say that this isn't something that just, is a long time ago, but this is a living tradition and a living culture that they get to participate in. Let's see. There's another one. I have a couple of screen captures. Again, this is just sort of highlight how it looks like on the screen as an online text. You can see this is one from the Australian Aborigines, and for each one, I try to put the globe up and a little map so they can see where in the world these indigenous peoples came from. And then I think you can see here that anything that's a darker text, and this isn't live, this is a screen capture, so it won't actually work. But anything that's like a darker text, where like on the first line where it says dream time, that would be one of those areas where if you put your mouse over it, a pop-up would come up, and it would explain what the dream time meant, because dream time is actually a word for the Aboriginal people that sort of meant the things that happened in their dreams is the gods speaking to them, and everyone would understand that meant this is the time when the earth was new, this is the time when the gods and the sacred things were happening on the earth with the same time that the people were there. Okay, and so there's a little popovers that explain that. You can see just at the bottom, I have images, so if it talks about a bird, I think it's the bandicoot, and there's a picture of a bandicoot. And some of them, there's pronunciation guides to help them with it. Okay, so this is just so much fun for me to develop this. And I did have some subject matter experts work with me. Jolene Gates is the dean who worked with me. And you can see below this Dr. Kishan Laura Cooper. She actually is from the Hoopa Reservation. She grew up there. She went to school there. She left and went to Arizona and got her PhD, and she's returned. She's teaching out here now. And she was very generous and worked with me on going through the reader and going through the curriculum to make sure that what I had designed and developed was appropriate, and that I hadn't accidentally done something that could have turned the students off if you say things or present things in a certain way that could be alienating to them. And she was fantastic. The very first thing she said when she saw the reader was, how come there isn't a story from the Hoopa tribe? If this is our reader, we should start with a story from our culture. And I said, absolutely, give me one. Because all the stories that I used had to be copyright free, because this is all going to go up under a Creative Commons license. And I didn't have anything from the Hoopa Nation, and because of the information that I had, the people who had taken the time to write them out had a copyright on it. So she's actually in the process right now of working with people at the Hoopa Reservation to find out if she can get permission for me to use one. And I haven't heard back from her, but it's only been a week, and she's going to try to get me something from that community, and I'm really excited about that, and that's going to be the starting point. And the other person I worked with was Vinny Peloso. He works with me in the reading department at College of the Redwoods, and what he's helping me do is we're making sure that the reading level for each story is appropriate. The reading material starts out in the first few weeks at about just shy of a 5th grade reading level, and the goal of the class is that they read at the 8th grade level by the time they complete the class. And so gradually over the course of the semester, we started about just below the 5th grade reading level, and then at the end, the reading material we use is at the 8th grade or 8.5 grade reading level. So making sure that the curriculum aligns correctly with the stories that I've chosen, making sure that it progresses sequentially, and they gradually get more difficult. He's also been really useful about helping me find things that need to be annotated that I maybe overlooked that happens. So he's been an extra set of eyes, and he's currently working with me right now to edit the last six assignments for the reader. So that's where we are with the project right now. I have the curriculum is designed. Some of it's still being tweaked a little bit, and I have the 15 modules up. Again, from around the world, we use North American everything from Zuni tribes to Inuit, Hawaiian Islands. I have a whole 4-week where we do Asian cultures from the indigenous peoples from Korea, several places in China and Tibet. I have stories, several that come from different cultures in the African continent as well as India. So the only place I was not able to get a story that I really wanted one from was the South American continent. And props to them, because what they did in South America is I found all this fabulous material, but the governments down there collected it all and they copyrighted it. So I find these terrific stories from the cultures in Brazil, or these wonderful stories that came from Venezuela. And then when I found them, it says, collected by, the Historical Society of Venezuela, and it's copyrighted. So I couldn't use anything. I couldn't find anything that was copyright free that would be appropriate. And so unfortunately, I don't. That's the only area that I kind of don't have anything from, is the South Americans. South America, but every other continent I have represented. And so this is an online reader. And so what happens again is I'm going to deliver this over the summer, because we're in the final editing stages now, and I'm going to load it into a course that they get to use, and it's going to be specific to them, and anybody that's teaching has access to this online material. Now, some students prefer a hard copy. And so there's always going to be the option to print this out. They can always just print it out if the students don't like reading it online. But it is meant to be read online. It's designed to be interactive and engaging in an online environment. Again, the students can roll over to get more information when they need it. There's some self-tests, and there's some really interesting videos for them to watch. And so it's supposed to be an online resource. So where does this go from here? Well, anybody who's interested in looking at this online material, all of this is open education resources, so where can you get it? I believe I have that on the next slide. Yes, I do. Learn more. The course that I designed for the state of Washington as part of the Open Course Library project is a developmental English class. It's a pre-composition level course. It's a complete course, but it's broken up into modules. So there's a reader element, there's writing assignments, there's full grammar lessons, the whole thing, but it's designed to be modularized. So if anybody wants just one part of it, they can take just the part that they want, or they could take the entire course. So if anybody who's seeing this presentation is interested in looking at those materials and being able to use them and see what they look like and interact with them, you can get that at sbctc.edu. If you click there, it'll take you to the website, and you can get information about Open Course Library Project, and it'll give you links to not just my course, but all the courses that were developed. The first year they had 40 courses that were done, and I believe this year I think they're doing another 30, maybe 35. And so that's a repository of absolutely free, have at it, online tools, whole courses, and all of them were designed to be modular, and some are more modular than others. So anybody who's looking for online resources, that would be a great place to get started, to look for things that maybe you could use in your classes. If anybody wants to see the results of what's happening with Project Kaleidoscope, I put the link up there. Again, everyone is finishing up this semester, and we're literally wrapping it up. This week or next week. Some of the schools are in slightly different calendaring systems. And so they're going to be taking all that and gathering the data, and then they're going to be publishing that. And so there'll be some reports coming out. So if anybody wants more information about Project Kaleidoscope, again, you might be able to access, in fact, I'm sure you're going to be able to access the open education tools, which are also online tools. And there's going to be repositories that you're going to be able to get those materials at that site. And then the final one, which is the one that I'm designing now, the Indigenous Peoples Readers Project, that was done through collegeopentextbooks.org, and you can click there and get access to those free online resources that might be useful to you as well. Now, the Indigenous Peoples Readers Project is going to be delivered to the Hoopa Nation over the summer. They're going to be using it starting next fall. Now that I'm done with Project Kaleidoscope, and now that I'm done with the I will be done with the Indigenous Peoples Reader Project over the summer once we finish editing it, These are all going out under a Creative Commons license, and I'm going to be putting them up on several places online. I know for a fact I'm going to be putting them up on the low. The reason they're not up right now is because they're still being taught or they're still in development. And once we're done with that, I'm going to take what I've learned, make sure that they're quality, fix any little typos that were out there, and we're going to put these out. And so people will be able to access all of these materials if anybody's interested. So that's my presentation on the reader, how I got involved in it, and where you can get more information if you want. If anybody wants to contact me or has any questions, I would love to talk to you about it. If anybody out there, and I always say this, if anybody out there has used any open education resource tools and wants to give us feedback on it, we love the feedback. I'd love to hear from you, but also, feel free to talk to the people that you're working with if you use an open education resource tool. My email where people can get me is just my name, Jacqui Cain @gmail.com. Just my name, no spaces, @gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody who has any questions, give you some follow-up on this. And I hope that you enjoyed this and that you go out there and use the tools. Thank you so much.